Welcome to the Book Party Podcast. Join us as we journey into the world of books with Michael T. Prepare to be captivated by engaging interviews, insightful discussions, and fascinating stories. You'll discover new adventures and gain insight into the creative process of the authors themselves as they share their struggles and accomplishments. Now let's hear from Michael T.
This is Michael T. Ladies and gentlemen, baseball enthusiasts, book lovers alike. Welcome to a special episode of the Book Party Podcast. Today we are pleased to introduce you to an exciting new author whose debut novel has been making waves in the literary world. Today, join us as we dive into the fascinating world created by the talented wordsmith William R. Douglas and explore his captivating book, The Death and Resurrection of Baseball, Echoes from a Distant Past. But before we unravel the secrets of this post-apocalyptic gem, let's get to know the man behind the words. William Douglas, a name that may be new to the world of fiction, brings a wealth of life experiences to his storytelling. Armed with a journalism degree obtained in 1980, Douglas embarked on a career in information technology, leaving his mark at renowned companies like Mindscape Software, EDS, IBM, Sears, Walgreens, Dell's, and the Boeing Company. Despite this technical journey, he never let go of his passion for writing, whether it be technical documentation, websites, newsletters, or other materials. Hailing from the charming town of McHenry, Illinois, nestled an hour northwest of Chicago, William himself, there with his wife Lori and their feline companion, Peaches. Their life is enriched by the presence of 6 children, 8 grandchildren, and they are active members of their local church, demonstrating a deep commitment to their community. Now let's turn the attention to the literary treasure, The Death and Resurrection of Baseball. This novel offers a fresh perspective on the post-apocalyptic genre, described as gentler than typical by GaggerBooks.com. Set in 2166, a century after a devastating Second American Civil War, baseball has faded into a distant memory, seemingly lost to history. However, the story takes an intriguing twist when a curious 12-year-old boy named Joe Scott stumbles upon a relic from the past, a relic before the war. Little does he know that his discovery will set in motion a grand adventure filled with heart, determination, and a profound love for the game. Join us on a journey through this thrilling tale of perseverance and triumph against all odds as we explore the pages of The Death and Resurrection of Baseball. We'll uncover the magic of baseball, the power of tradition, and the unwavering spirit of its characters. So, dear listeners, get ready to be captivated by the story that reminds us that some traditions are worth persevering. No matter how far out into the future we go, without further ado, I'd like to invite William R. Douglas to our podcast to share insights into his book, into the creative journey that brought this remarkable story to life. Stay tuned for an engaging conversation that makes you eager to dive into this literary adventure. So, William, why don't you take it from here, fill in the blanks a bit, and tell our listeners about yourself.
Well, first, Michael, I want to thank you for inviting me on your show, Book Party. It's a pleasure to be on here and have this conversation, and I hope your listeners will enjoy this dialogue. I'm looking forward. It's going to be fun. So William R. Douglas, I came out with my debut novel in May of last year, and it's doing well. It's gotten some great reviews. I just won an international award Labor Day weekend from a website called Reader's Favorite. They have an annual international book award contest, and mine was selected as a finalist in the sports fiction category. So, full disclosure, I don't want to deceive anybody, but it didn't place first, second, or third, but it was selected as a finalist and was awarded as such. And it's nice to get some recognition for a debut piece of work. So, so I've been involved in the IT field since the 1980s, currently working with the Boeing Company. And one way or the other, I've been involved in writing all through my long career in information technology. Finally, a couple years before 2016, I had an idea start to germinate about actually starting to write a book. It's been a goal of mine to sit down and write a novel. I've been told I was, a good writer, and you should go write a book. I would hear that from family and friends. I'm like, yeah, maybe one day I will. Well, one day came, and I started writing in the fall of 2016. I finished in the draft manuscript. I finished in the fall of 2020 during the first year of the pandemic, and went through a whole series of revisions and editing and so on and so forth. And they came finally to a close in early 2022. So then the next steps were getting the book prepared for publishing. So here we are, and things have been fun. It's been a fun journey, and a lot of help along the way. My very first review was from an acclaimed author in the UK by the name of Casey Finn, and it was a very good review. And I was honored to get her review of my debut novel, and things have continued to progress. So, again, I'm happy for the opportunity you've extended for me to come on Book Party, Michael. So thank you.
And we're glad to have you here. On your publishing journey, did you go the self-publishing route, or did you go the route of finding an agent, an agency route, or something in the middle, like a hybrid route? How did you go about your publishing?
Question. Fair and honest question. The answer is that I tried to go the traditional route first. I had assembled a team of beta readers, one of them with a PhD in English and was actually an English teacher. And the feedback was unanimous that it was an exceptional story. So I went down the route of trying to secure a book agent, which is, you have to get a book agent if you're going to try and get a book published through a standard publishing house, or I should say a traditional publishing house. And I got some encouraging replies, but no one actually was willing to take it up. A typical response on the ones I did get replies on was that, it sounds like a great story, but this is not my genre, or my plate's overflowing right now, but we encourage you to keep looking. Excuse me. So I did that, kept looking. Finally, I came across a gal that was offering self-publishing tips online. And I looked into it. I knew about self-publishing before I went down the first part of trying to get an agent. So I knew it was there. I thought, well, first I'll try the traditional route first and see what happens. And nothing broke. And so because of the encouragement I had received from the beta readers, I said, well, I'm gonna to plot ahead here. So I went down the secondary path of self-publishing, and it's been a fun and rewarding journey. So, yeah.
Well, when you went down that self-publishing route, did you go down it as an indie author, or did you go down it as getting some collaboration to do, your editing and formatting and your cover design and things
Sure.
like that?
Yeah, another great question. So yeah, definitely some collaboration. When I thought I was completely done editing the manuscript, which I had help editing, one thing that the gal that I came across online that was coaching people on being self-published was that no matter what you may think of the manuscript, you're a fool if you don't hire a professional editor and a professional proofreader. So I did that. I went out on Upwork, and I found someone with extensive experience in editing and proofreading, and I had her take the manuscript on as obviously a paid gig to go through it. So it took her probably about 2 months for her to go through the manuscript, and there was, of course, all kinds of back and forth with questions and suggestions and so on and so forth, and edits and re-edits, and then finally it got to a point where it was done from an editing perspective. The next step was getting the manuscript formatted for self-publishing, which they have very strict guidelines on formatting. So I hired another individual for that, and then also hired a third individual to design the cover. So yeah, definitely some healthy and constructive and obviously productive collaboration to get it finally to a point where
it's extremely important to get that other set of eyes on there.
Absolutely.
Because no matter what we think of our manuscript, we have to get that other set of eyes on my
Correct.
books. The 3 that I've done so far, I'm working on number 4 now. I have to get that editing done.
Yes.
And the formatting done by somebody else.
Correct.
The cover design, because on my first book, I gave a go at the cover design, and what a disaster that was. So, I gave the cover design. I used Fiverr, and I got somebody to do it, and it turned out absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've built a team
to
do these things, and then the second book went quick, the third book went better. Now I'm on my 4th book, so it's going a little bit slower now because I'm really busy with the podcasting. So, it's going a little slower on my side. But once I get my side done, then it'll just go super fast with the team that I've got put together. So it's really important to, start putting that team together.
Sure.
So,
and,
anyway,
again, go ahead, finish your thought.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So along the lines of, the second set of eyes and collaboration, et cetera, I made one mistake during the run-up to the publication back in May of 2022, and that mistake was I had a very rigid idea of what I wanted the cover to look like. In fact, I even provided a photograph for the cover of the first rendition of the cover, and the photograph made absolute perfect sense in my mind, and to people after they read the story, it made sense in their mind, but it did not make sense to someone who was not aware of the story. So what eventually wound up happening is I went on a self-publishing Facebook group, and I said, I want to put this out here for some feedback and a vote, and I put the cover out there. I says, what do y'all think? Well, it was disastrous. I mean, they're like, oh no, you definitely need a new cover. So I'm like, okay, I get the hint. So I went on Fiverr as well, and I found a gal in Iowa, a very avid baseball fan, and had a solid track record developing covers. And I hired her to reimagine the cover. First, though, I was very insistent. I said, look, the story's very dear. It's getting great reviews from the people who read it. I would only ask that before you design the cover, that you actually read the book yourself. I'll send you a complimentary copy. She said, absolutely. So I sent her a copy of the book, and she just came back and was like, oh my gosh, I just absolutely love this story. And I can't wait to, tackle this as a project to try and reimagine the cover. So she did, and it came out, I think it came out stunning. I get nothing but compliments on the second rendition of the cover. So it's been fun. Again, to what you said earlier, second set of eyes, taking a look at it from a graphic arts and a book cover design perspective, and say, yeah, this first one's not cutting it, but here's an attempt at a reimagining, and she, if I can use a baseball term, she hit it out of the park. So.
Right, there you go. Take us to a point of what you would consider writing your book as the worst author moment.
Yeah, a bona fide writer's block set in. I want to say it hit like in the fall of 2018. I have been dabbling and writing in pieces of time that were afforded to me because of my schedule, and as the story began to unfold in my mind. So it was moving along, not as fast as I had hoped. I must confess. Then I just hit a wall, and it just totally shut down. I love to tell this story, by the way. I think you'll like it. But so fast forward to to August of 2019. And I was talking to my wife, Lori. I says, Laura, I know this story's in me. I know it's going to be a good story. I said, but I'm just stuck. I gotta go somewhere and get re-inspired. And so I said, I'm going to go out to Iowa, to Dyersville, to the Field of Dreams movie site. I'm just going to go spend the day there and try to get re-inspired to pick up the story and get going here. And so I did. I left early on a Saturday morning of Labor Day weekend, 2019, and I went out to Dyersville, went on the movie site ball field. I brought my mitt with, and I was on the field for about 5 hours, throwing the ball. I did a lot of pitching, and I pitched to, I don't know how many people, but, just had a lot of fun doing that. Just played some fielding over at shortstop and talked to a lot of people. And then finally, when I was done, I was like, it just felt like this block had just melted away because of the experience there. So I sat down in the bleachers at the Field of Dreams in Dyersville, and I started writing. And I had my laptop with, so and it just started flowing on me. So I wrote all of chapter 6 and part of chapter 7 at the Field of Dreams in Dyersville, Iowa. And then once I got home, it just continued to unfold. And then in March of 2020, when the pandemic ramped up and they did the shutdown, I was working for Walgreens at the time. They sent us home to work from home until further notice. And then, story was we were we were told we were going to lose our jobs because our jobs were being outsourced overseas. So we had a director tell us, don't do any work other than just read your emails and answer any questions you have for the company that's going to take over your position. So that freed me up to do a lot more as far as racing to the finish line to get the manuscript done, because I was able to have two laptops open, one monitoring my work emails, and then the other one I started typing away. And finally, lately at Labor Day weekend of 2020, I finished the manuscript, the draft.
Wow. Well, let's flip the coin on that a little bit and talk about an epiphany moment. And what I mean by that is you could have been doing anything but writing. You could have been driving. You could have been working at your job. You could have been having a shower for all that mattered. And all of a sudden, a great light bulb goes off in your head. And it's like, oh, wow, this great thought happens. I got to find a pen and paper right now. I got to write this down right now. Because if you don't, it's going to fade and won't be there anymore. Do you have a moment like that?
I did. I wish I could call the exact place of what I was doing, but a thought came into my head for the ending of the book. And it was such a magical thought. I'm like, this is absolutely perfect for the ending of the book. And so that was one epiphany. There was another epiphany for one of the characters in the book. Actually, it's the President of the United States in the book. I didn't know what to name this individual, and then I had an epiphany about that, and I chose a very famous name for a very specific reason. But the readers will have to find that out for themselves. But yeah, so the big one was a very important part of the ending, and a very famous person that has a big hand in the ending of the book. So, and then a third epiphany really came along with a minor character in the book who has a kind of a cameo in part of the ending, and then a secondary appearance with the big ending, I call it, because without revealing the specifics, obviously there's going to be some magical point at the end of the book, given the title of the book, and so this character from the past has a role in that, and then they have an interaction with the grand finale in the book as well. So,
okay,
I'm being vague on purpose.
Yeah. What is the one thing that you're the most fired up about or excited about right now today?
Well, I am writing a second book. I've been on, like, as I said off air, about 15 podcasts already. And several of the hosts kind of challenged me to take on the undercurrent that's in the first book. And the undercurrent is this Second American Civil War, that book time is 100 years in the past. So the story itself is about baseball. It's about the exploits of this 12-year-old boy. But there is this strong undercurrent in the story that's tied back 100 years in the past to a Second American Civil War. So was challenged. Hey, you should try and write about that. Like I said, I'm thinking about it. And I'm trying to figure out how to even approach such an awful subject. God forbid it should ever happen. But eventually, I was really influenced by current events and the news cycle. No matter what news channel you subscribe to or watch or listen to. And I'm just very, very concerned about the state of the country and the great divide that we have in our country right now. So I sat down and started writing about a future second civil war that starts in the year 2061. So I'm in chapter 16 of that right now, and I already know it's going to be somewhat of a longer story than the first novel, but that's okay. I think I'm about 2/3 of the way done through this second novel that takes on this God forbid scenario that is depicted in the story. And the goal would be that if enough readers get a hold of it, maybe we can get some things turned around and start bridging some of the divide that we have in the country.
This is Michael T. We invite you to go to the bookpartypodcast.com, hit that subscribe tab on top, scroll down to the icon of your choice, such as Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or Odyssey, where you can download and follow us there. Please leave a review. Don't forget to sign up for our video newsletter to get information on our upcoming shows. Now, William, we're entering the lightning round. In the lightning round, there are 4 pointed questions for 4 pointed answers. So, before you started writing as an author, what held you back from becoming an author in the first place?
Time and the belief I could actually do it.
Okay. The imposter syndrome, or?
I'm not familiar with that phrase, but I was like, okay, time because of commitments with family and extracurricular stuff outside the home and church commitments and it is a daunting task to sit down if you've never written a book, to sit down and write a book. I never, never even tried it before. So, but once I began the road, I kept plodding along. So,
Okay. Once you started writing, what was the best advice you had ever received?
oh gosh, the best advice I'd ever received once I started writing, I think was I read somebody's article that was a self-publisher, and their advice was to just get the story out there, meaning get it on the paper, or get it on the Word doc in my case, but was to just get it out there and then get it done, get it out of you, and then and then you can focus on editing and revisions and all that stuff. But to not get hung up on getting the story out of you, to focus on that first.
Basically, you cannot edit a blank page.
Correct. Well said.
Okay. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Research. So I wanted to make sure that there was accuracy in the story, and in writing this next novel, there's been a lot of research going into that one. So yeah, research and continuity. Continuity is important. Accuracy, and obviously engaging characters. So
I've got a question that's not in these 4 questions. Did you have an outline? Did you create an outline for your book?
yeah, great question. I have it in my head. So here's the genesis of how this story came about. So there were 3 main components. The first one was an article that I had read probably 15 years or so ago now, about games that kids used to play before the American Civil War, the 1860s, and how these games were extinct. No one knew their names, much less know how to play them. I thought, oh, it's pretty interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I'm a history buff. I'm also a Civil War buff, so that just kind of stuck with me for some reason. Extinct games. I wasn't even thinking about baseball when I put it in the file cabinet in my brain, but like I say, it stuck with me. And I read David Aikman's novel When the Almond Tree Blossoms, and David Aikman was a senior foreign correspondent for the New York Times, and he wrote this book, or his book, in the early 1990s. And his novel, When the Almond Tree Blossoms, was about a what if scenario along the lines of a second civil war that was fought along ideological lines of conservative and liberal, literally at war with one another. And that really had an impact, because the cultural wars in the early 90s, in my opinion, were just starting to ramp up as they were. Of course, they continued ebbing and flowing unabated since that time. And a third book was William Fortune's novel, 1 Second After. And that was about an attack against the United States with an EMP attack. So, and I just started stewing in my mind, like, to write a book. Yeah, I want to write a book. I want to do this. I love baseball. I've been involved in baseball since I was a kid. I've coached baseball. I still play softball, and I just had this thought, like, what would happen if baseball were to die as a sport? And that, now, I know I'm not trying to convince anyone that baseball is in imminent danger of collapse, but at the macro level, there are issues with the sport where its popularity is diminishing, especially among the youth. And so I started kicking this thing around, and then it started to gel together. Well, let's see. I write a book about baseball dies as a sport, but how does it die? And this is where the idea of the second Civil War becomes kind of a proverbial nail in the coffin to the sport. But it had already been dying before then. It had been slowly and gradually collapsing in popularity and being replaced in popularity by a love of soccer and lacrosse and other sports. But then this war comes along, and like I say, it's the proverbial nail in the coffin. It totally kills the sport.
Right, but my question about having an outline, a solid outline, and the solid outline comes with basically chapters, subheadings in your chapters. I mean, did you create an actual outline to write your book?
Yes, I had an outline with major chapter headings. Obviously, they were revised as I went along, but they did provide a framework for which to pour the story into it and around it and encompassing it. So, and I've done that again with the second novel as well. So, yes.
The reason I'm asking that is because when you said you had the writer's block, when I'm writing nonfiction, and I have to have an absolute solid outline that's absolutely researched to death. And then I put my chapter headings for all the chapters. The subheadings have to be there. And when I run into a block, all I do is go ahead and start writing ahead of it. And then I can end up filling in the blanks in the middle. So I never have to actually stop. Does that make sense to you?
It does. Yeah, it's a good tip.
So I just go ahead of it a little bit, and start writing there. And then I can come back, and then there's no stoppage.
Sure.
So that was just my question for you.
Good tip.
That you can go ahead of that area where the stop is and just start writing ahead. And then you'll get something that'll trigger to go back and fill in those blanks.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why I asked that question.
No, that's a great question. I will remember.
Kind of popped into my head a little bit.
Sure, I will definitely.
Okay. Because now, William, we're going to go into the grand finale. So in the grand finale, what I want you to do is just take a few minutes and just tell our listeners about your book without, of course, giving it away.
Sure. So again, thanks, Michael, for the opportunity and for your listeners. The book, The Death and Resurrection of Baseball, starts in the year 2166. And our protagonist is a 12-year-old boy by the name of Joe Scott. He lives about an hour northwest of Chicago, and he becomes a central focal point in rediscovering the lost sport of baseball, which has been lost to history. There's no one alive that has any memory of the game. And he finds a relic one day that sets him on a quest to understand what this thing means. And through help from family and friends, he winds up going on this adventure of rediscovery. And like I say, got some help along the way, but it's a great feel-good story with I hear the word hope from a lot of people that have read it and reviewed it, and they describe it as a book, very hopeful book, and a feel-good story with a great ending.
Well, it sounds fantastic, actually. And I think that there should be a lot of people should be reading this story. So, William, we thank you so much for being here with us today and opening up to us. And I'm sure our listeners appreciate this, too. Again, this is Michael T. To all our listeners, I invite you to go to bookpartypodcast.com. Hit that subscribe tab on top. Scroll down to the icon of your choice, where you can find us on one of your favorite platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or Odyssey, where you can download and follow us there, and please leave a review. And of course, that is where you can hear William's broadcast as well. And don't forget to sign up for our video newsletter and get the latest information for our upcoming shows. Book Party Podcast is owned and powered by MTM Legacy Publishing, LLC. This is Michael T. signing off.
You must not miss our next episode as we delve into a world of inspiration, entertainment, and thought-provoking insights. Join Michael T. on the next Book Party Podcast and experience a new adventure, a new story, and a complete immersion into the world of Pages Unveiled, Chronicles of the Writing Journey.